Welcome back to the Autry Benton Show. We got a true treat today. We have a daughter, a wife, a mother, a business person, our lieutenant governor, and she's running to be the next governor of South Carolina. My friend and your friend, Pamela Evette. Thank you for joining us again today.
So nice to be here.
Yes, you're everywhere now.
I try to be everywhere. You know, when I said I was going to run for governor in July, I made a promise to the people of South Carolina that I would visit all 46 counties before the end of the year. And on December 16th, we checked the box in the last county. And so it was great, Autry, to be in every part of our state, and I've been to every county. You know, it's my 8th year being lieutenant governor, so you know I've been to every county for one reason or another. But to go there with the purpose of sitting down, having a town hall, having a round table, having a meet and greet, just to listen to what people were saying was just amazing. And you know, everybody wants the same things at heart. They want to be safe. They want their kids to be educated, and they want prosperity here in our state. And it was amazing to sit down with everyone.
Well, you can be honest with it now, Horry County is your favorite, right?
Well, you know, I am the governor for all parts of the state, but I have a big soft spot in my heart here. You know, I've been here. This has been a place that my husband and I have called home for, my gosh, 17, 18 years now. We've come down here and brought our kids down here and spent summers, and the people are amazing. And it's just amazing to me to see it grow, just like the upstate. You know, we have a home in the upstate, and I look at Little Travelers Rest, and when I moved there, I mean, there was nothing. And now we have a coffee and crepes, and we have the Swamp Rabbit Trail, and it's just like here. It's growing, and it's amazing the amount of people and businesses and opportunity that are coming in our state. And you know, you look at it in Rock Hill, and you look at it in Charleston, you look at it in the Midlands, and you know, the secret is out in South Carolina.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, I want to brag on you for just a minute. As our lieutenant governor, I don't think anybody will ever outwork you. You're everywhere. You're involved. You love our veterans. And I just want to say we had a big veterans event here in Horry County, over 1,000 people. As you know, we have a large veteran population here, but you came and showed your support. And what really struck me about that night is I think you stayed longer than I did. And I hosted it, but you were so intentional with everyone there, and it just really showed you care. So thank you for caring for our veterans.
Well, thank you. And, you know, they've given so much, and their families. You know, I try to always remember to thank their families. It's just like when our law enforcement, when I'm speaking at law enforcement, you know, I don't know what it's like to put on a uniform, whether it's a military uniform or a law enforcement uniform, and go out there and every day not know if I'm coming home to my children. And I know that is not given to us. You know, tomorrow is never offered to any of us. But the dangers that our veterans put themselves in for the love of all of us in this country cannot go unrecognized. And so, but I always feel like I'm just humbled that like, what kind of words can I pass on to such brave men and women who do such wonderful things for this nation? And I got to tell you, Autry, it breaks my heart what's happening in Minnesota. And, you know, the way our law enforcement is being treated, this is the product of failed leadership there.
Yes.
The Governor Waltz and, you know, Mayor Fry. You know, when you're a leader, you have to learn how to de-escalate situations. They have just escalated this, and you know, some would say it's to, you know, bring attention to that instead of the fraud that is happening in their state. But either way, the victims in this are law enforcement. The way they're being treated, the things being thrown at them, the insults being given to them. I mean, I just can't imagine. And
federal agents.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's why I'm proud here in South Carolina, making sure that we will never have a sanctuary city here. You know, we codified that into law, and look at, I mean, ICE has come into our state. ICE has come into other states. They come in, they work with local and state law enforcement, they get their mission done, and they leave. And we never have clashes, and we never have problems. But it's in these blue states that are sanctuary cities that, you know, so many of these things we know are orchestrated because we see the same protesters wherever they go. And that's why here in South Carolina, I stood with Sheriff Jody Rowland and really am pushing for the HALO Act this year. You know, it's what that does is it basically says if you are a first responder, if you are a law enforcement officer, federal, state, or local, and you're in the process of doing your job, and you tell somebody to back up, they have to back up 25 feet.
Amen. I love it.
Yeah, and that way you're keeping everybody safe. You're keeping the perpetrator, who they're arresting, safe. You're keeping our officers safe, and you're keeping the people around that incident safe. But it's amazing how some people will come onto social media and just bash that. It's like, where is not the common sense in that? But maybe common sense isn't so common anymore.
Oh, I know. Well, I want to kind of start at the beginning so our people can kind of get to know you. So tell us, where did you grow up and about your early life and kind of brought you to where you're at today?
Well, I grew up in a wonderful home. My dad was a tool and die maker. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My grandma lived with us. My grandparents were immigrants. They came from Poland, and so we were raised in this amazing environment of loving this country.
Amen.
And when your grandparents leave everything they know at a young age for the dreams that we were just blessed to be born in this country to be able to have. It really, that's kind of, I think, was some of my calling, right? Is my grandmother always saying, you were blessed to be born here, and if you can serve this country in any way, you should. And so I was just so fortunate, because I saw my parents were really active. And when I mean active, I don't mean they went to everything they did, but they knew what our grades were, and they made sure our homework was done. And then I couldn't tell you one day that I didn't feel loved. Now, at the time, I probably thought, that life could have been better somewhere else because the grass is always greener. But looking back, I was beyond blessed. And,
good families make good countries.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. And in strong parents, that's why it's so important, that our state keeps growing and prospering, because that's what we want. And then I went off to college, and I was an accountant, an accountant by trade.
Very smart.
Thank you. I know there's not many of us that decide to move into politics, and there should be more of us. I almost think we should be filled with more accountants than anything else, since we're handling everybody's money. But worked in public accounting, went into industry, and then kind of branched off on my own. Met my husband. I started my business, moved down to South Carolina. It's 20 plus years ago, and started my company from an office in my home.
Wow.
And grew it in a company that operated in 49 states.
Wow, so you know what it is to sign the front of a check.
Oh, yeah. And I know what it's like to stay up all night in those early years when you're trying to figure out, wow, I have a health insurance renewal, and that renewal went up, and how am I going to pay for that? And wow, I got to make payroll next week, and we just had to buy new computers for everybody. And wow, all those things that anybody who's ever been a small business owner or big business owner, we all feel the same. We all feel the same pains.
Thank you for saying that.
Degrees.
That's so true.
It is. But it was the best thing, being able to do that. But while I was growing my company, I kept coming to the realization, and people who have heard me talk, I talk about this a lot, that the American dream was getting further and further away from our children than it was from my grandparents. And it was because government was getting so big. And there were no business people. Like, as I would look around and you try to have like just a normal business conversation with an elected official, they didn't know what you were talking about. And it was because there were just no business people. And so I became an early Donald Trump supporter because it was so important for me to have somebody that signed the front of a paycheck, that knew what it was like, but more so wasn't a career politician.
And I think most business owners say it this way, it shouldn't be this hard.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah. And that's why, when the governor called me and asked me to run as his lieutenant governor, just the idea. So my dad used to tell us, don't complain about something you're not willing to fix.
Good wisdom.
And I find myself saying so many things in speeches that my dad said, I wish I know he hears me, but I wish he was down here to hear it. But that's what he said. And so when the governor asked me to run with him as his lieutenant governor, that thought of my dad went through my head. Like, here I am sitting in my office, growing my business, complaining about how big government is.
Right.
Well, now I might have a real chance to do something to make
Wow.
it better.
Wow.
And so I was inspired to do it.
Yeah. So tell us your husband and your kids, please.
Yes. So my husband, David, we worked together. I know most people think like, oh my gosh, how does a husband and wife work together? But we did completely different things in our
Right.
company, and we loved it. That was probably the hardest transition when I became lieutenant governor. We were used to seeing each other
Wow.
and working together. I have 3 amazing children. My daughter is an attorney. My middle son is a master barber.
Okay.
And my youngest is studying to be an architect.
Oh, that's
and so
great.
they're all chasing their dreams, and I'm really proud of all of them. And I think they're the best of my husband and I. Right? They're not afraid to stand up for what they believe in. We raised them, we sent them to parochial school. That's probably why I'm so passionate about school choice, because I feel like we were blessed to be able to send them. And some of those years when we were starting the company was tough. I mean, it wasn't like tuition, so it was sacrifice on our part. But I was happy to do it because it gave them the conviction to stand up for their faith, to stand up for family principles, and to be proud to be part of what we believed in. Like my daughter would do the South Carolina Citizens for Life March with me all the time.
Wow.
And that's not easy.
Yeah.
When you're a young girl in law school and the whole world is telling you that is the wrong view to have,
Yeah.
to be able to stand up, that always makes me the proudest as a mom.
Another thing I love about you is your mother. She still lives with you, correct?
I know. I am so blessed. My mom turned 97 this past October, and it's so amazing to kind of hear the world kind of through her eyes and just through this long life that she's been blessed to have. And sometimes it's concerning to her. I talk about it when I speak, and I say, when we were fighting to keep biological males out of women's sports, and I went home and I would say this to my mom, and she'd just look at me.
Couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, like confused, why would we have to pass that as a law? And I'm like, Mom, it is. And she watches Fox News all day.
Yeah.
She wakes up in the morning, she makes her coffee, she makes her oatmeal, she turns on Fox
She's
News.
watching the right stations.
That's
Yes,
right.
I didn't mean to interrupt
And
you.
she will tell me about it when I get home, everything that's happened all day.
Wow.
And that's how we talk. But it's so great to hear, I would have never thought this, or I would have never thought I'd be seeing this. When anti-Semitism was on the rise on college campuses, my mom was just appalled. Like, how can this be happening in this day and age?
Yeah.
And so it's always such a blessing to be able to see it through her eyes and her lens. But I'm so blessed. She lives with me, and she is an amazing lady. I mean, I hope I have all her spunk at 97.
That's great. Another thing I love about you, I remember, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, your youngest daughter went to college. You made a post to just, I said all the hats you wear, but you're a mother. I mean, you know what it is to send a child to college. My wife's so related to that, and I just appreciate that you've got different life experiences that everybody in South Carolina can relate to, and I just appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And my kids, being a mom. My husband gets mad when I say being a mom is the best title I've ever held, but it really is. And I just think, like I said earlier, they are the best parts of my husband and I. And it was hard. I became an empty nester this year when Jackson went off to college. And I mean, that is a tough chapter, and for every mom that's out there, and I'm sure your wife will feel this. It's like you feel like this era is just gone.
Yeah.
Like there's no more buying backpacks and uniforms and making sure that they're picked up after school and that you're involved in being. I was their room mom. I was blessed. I had my business, so I could work around. I could always be there for field trips and room mom stuff. And it's like I can remember while it was happening, and it seemed overwhelming.
Yeah.
And at the time, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to bake 2 dozen cupcakes, and I got to get it to school, and I got to get juice boxes. And really, when people tell you it's gone in the blink of an eye, it really is.
Yeah.
And it is. I mean, I came home and cried.
Yeah. Wow.
And I'm not a crier, so it made my husband really nervous.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, you're running for governor.
I am.
Yeah. There's we're in a very prosperous state, and I'm so glad we live in South Carolina. But a few issues I'd like to ask you about, if that's
Sure.
okay. I think one that you spoke about on the trail a good bit was judicial reform.
Yes.
Tell me your thoughts on that, because I think we really need it, ma'am.
We really do. And, I always say to people, perception is reality.
Yeah.
And what people don't like is this perception that the General Assembly, they kind of put up the, who they want to be judges, and then only the General Assembly votes on it. And so I like the federal way of doing it, where the governor should appoint, the General Assembly can confirm, but let's make it based on a list of criteria, just like every other job, right? You have to have the skill set to do this job.
Absolutely.
It should be for a finite term.
Yeah.
Let's put term limits on it, and let's make sure that we have a review process. So if we see that we think a judge, and we've seen that all across the country, making bad decisions, turning the courtroom into just a revolving door for career criminals, that we can pull back and make some changes if changes are needed.
Yeah.
And that to me will now give the perception to everybody that justice is being delivered fairly. And I think that's the bedrock of our country. And so I've been really passionate about that. The governor and I, it's not just something I dreamed up to get elected. The governor and I have been talking about this for a few years now. Feel very strongly about it.
Ma'am, it's going to be a tough fight, but I believe that our state the winds are finally blowing that way. Do you see that?
I do. What I tell people all the time is that, you vote for, your House representatives and your Senate representatives. People need to reach out to them, because I have really tried to have relationships with everybody. I go up to the House, I go up to the Senate, I talk to them. They really do want to hear from their constituents, and if they don't hear, or whoever they hear from kind of guides them, and I believe most of them feel like I do. They're there to do the will of the people that vote them in, and not just their own will. And so when they hear that energy coming from the base, then that's how these things will start to change. So I tell people all the time to reach out, be kind, but reach out and let them know how you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you about another one. Tremendous growth in the state, and I know that the legislators talking a little bit, what can we do from the state level? We welcome everybody, but we do have an infrastructure problem in our state, and there's some interesting conversations going on there with growth, infrastructure, and those things. What's your perspective? What's the right mix there? Because we do believe in home rule. Yep. So
absolutely.
It's a big question, but
no, it's actually an easy question for me, because it's something I've been thinking about for a few years. South Carolina doesn't have a master plan.
Okay.
And that was always shocking to me, being a business person, right? Because we always have
a plan.
Got to have a plan if you know where you're going. Most of our localities have plans. And as I traveled around all 46 counties, the one thing that excited everybody, whether you were in a rural area or an urban area, is a master plan. Because if you're in a rural area, then you're finally going to be part of the equation, right? We're going to actually look at this area. Now, I believe when we do that, you can figure out what are the right opportunities to go in that area. We figure out where our fertile farmland is that we don't want to touch or compromise. We can then start looking at where do we dispatch resources for infrastructure. And if you're in an urban area and you hear me talking like that, you get excited because you don't want all the congestion in one spot. And this kind of helps. This helps commerce, because now we can have a good roadmap of where to put these companies that are coming to look at South Carolina, where's the best fit. SCDOT goes, okay, well, if this is going to be where the next big growth is going to happen, well, that's where we should start dispatching resources when it comes to transportation, where it comes to sewer and water. Then localities start to see, okay, this is going to be the next big growth area. It just gives people a sense that, like you said, we're making a plan, we're growing responsibly, we're putting things where they need to be. And that gives people a level of comfort that somebody's at the helm actually thinking through this, and it's not just happening. And so, that's one thing I think will really lend to help. I know that there's been a lot of talk with SCDOT on roads and bridges. We have to continually maintenance them. Time is money. That's the one thing I learned in business. It's the one phrase I've said over and over again for 8 years. And when the governor and I put out our executive budget, we asked for $1.1 billion from the General Assembly.
Wow.
And we said, because time is money, and we need to accelerate these road jobs.
Yes.
Because the cost goes up 2, 3, 4x every year that it goes by. And we need to rail and permitting so we can get these things done quicker.
That is I'm glad to hear you say that. So a plan.
Yes.
We need a plan.
We got to have a plan.
You know, you said something earlier, as a business person, premium insurances.
Yep.
Probably like me, know what it's like to sit across the desk from the insurance agent and says your premium's going up.
Oh, yeah.
And we know, our laws, our tort laws drive that a lot of times. Tell me your thoughts on that and what we can do to try to, your thoughts, do we need tort reform in our state?
Well, I was really excited last year because that was like the beginning, something that when I got into office, people said would never happen. And last year, we started this bill. Was it everything we wanted? No. But the bright spot in that for me was that the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, the Governor, and I all stood there and said, this is just the beginning. And we're going to come back. And we're seeing, some stricter, DUI laws.
Yes.
That helps,
Personal responsibility.
Exactly.
Yes.
So all those things fill into the mix of these premiums. And, Speaker Smith, he wants to have the insurance companies come to the table and say, okay, tell us what we need to do that will incentivize you to lower your rates for us. And that's the kind of dialogue we need to have, the same kind of dialogue. We did it with our businesses, right? Like, tell us why this is going up. What do we need to do to, keep it the same or not stop the spike? That's what we're talking about, that sense of cooperation, communication, and collaboration. And I think that is an amazing thing that's happening. We did some, there's more to do. Everybody said they're going to do it. So I'm extremely happy that the ball has at least started rolling.
Right. And we said it earlier, that's why I'm glad we have a business person that can bring your perspective to issues like that, because it's real until you've lived it. Bit of a touchy one here, whatever,
Okay.
Power in our state. We do have a power problem, and then data centers. How do we balance it with rising costs, these varied costs, with our constituents, elderly people, but yet we got data centers coming, and the fact that they are such gobblers of energy. How can we offset that? Your thoughts on that?
So, the first thing I'm happy we did is we passed what I tease as the big, beautiful energy bill here in South Carolina. VC Summer, actually resurrecting that project, that will be a huge game changer for power generation in our state. And the more power you generate, the more stable you can keep rates. That is very positive. When it comes to data centers, it was, at first blush, everybody looks at that and goes, oh, I am not for them. I am not against them. I'm for, I think, data centers that are not using, I was intrigued when I went to Spartanburg. And Alan Smith talked about he's won Spartanburg, and he was talking about their data center. Now, their data center doesn't use any water. It's cooled with fans. Their data center doesn't use any electricity. It has natural gas pipe to it.
Interesting.
So if you can tell me that you will bring a data center here that will create good revenue for the place it's at, that's not going to affect our water, that's not going to drive up rates, because as governor, I'm never going to let any industry come into our state that adversely impacts the people of this state.
Wow.
So, what I say is what I say to most things. Show me the right kind that's doing it the best, that is not going to adversely affect, and then let's talk about it.
Yeah, because they're not bad.
Yeah, well, we have to have them, right?
AI is a part of us. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, the data centers of old, I call them like data centers 1.0, yeah, they were using a lot of power and they were using a lot of water, but now, like when you look at these next generation ones that don't have those issues, I think, those are things we have to look at. You always have to weigh the good and bad. It's what we do in business every single day. So what I say to any industry that wants to come here, you have to be the right fit for this state.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Not easy issues we have to tackle, right?
No,
but
not at all.
Leadership, that's why we need leadership.
Yep.
We've done hit on it once, but a large veteran population in our state. And I know that this is something that's near and dear to your heart, but 22 veterans we lose a day to suicide. And I know that's near to you. Do you want to speak on that, what we can do to continue to combat that, or as governor, how you will highlight veterans?
Absolutely. So, I was in the upstate, and I was at Upstate Warrior Solutions, and they are a great veteran non-for-profit group that helps veterans. And there was a signing there with all the coroners from around the state. And what we're going to do, what they've kind of started this process, is that coroners will deliver to veterans, Veteran Affairs, real-time data on veterans who lose their life. Because as everybody says, we think it's going to be way higher than the 22. And so this will kind of give us a better gauge, and I didn't even think about it, like a veteran who, at the surface doesn't look like a suicide, but maybe it's just had enough and drives his car off the side of the road and hits a tree. Okay, nobody could, you could easily say, well, that wasn't a suicide. Maybe a deer ran out in front of the car, whatever. We don't know,
right.
But we don't know because we're not really tracking it that closely. And by doing that, too, we can also dispatch resources to their family, their loved ones. I can't say thank you enough to our non-for-profits because, I always say, we have a 6-foot bed and government only has a 4-foot blanket. And that 2 foot is really filled in by our non-for-profits and our faith-based community doing so much to help. And I know down here, I work with SAO every year at the Carolina Country Music Festival.
Yes.
They give away a dog to a disabled veteran. And I'm always just so pleased to be a part of that. Again, just saying thank you for this incredible sacrifice that they've made. We got to continue our work with our Department of Veterans Affairs here in the state. Very proud that during our administration that was adopted. Major General Livingston, our own Medal of Honor winner, he was a big part of surfacing that to the top, saying if you have this here, we'll get more resources for our veterans.
Wow.
And then the fact that we're building such beautiful veteran homes, veteran nursing homes. I went to one in Sumter for a ribbon cutting, and it was beautiful. And it was exactly where if my father was a veteran going in there, he would feel like he had dignity and respect. It was a beautiful building with kind people taking care of them. We have to do more things like that to take care of them. When,
Wow.
They gave us so much. The least we can do is take care of them now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all you have done for veterans and will do for veterans. So we're wrapping up, got about a minute. Is there anything that you want the voters to know or that I've missed? Or?
Well, what I want everybody to know is that I want to be the governor for everybody.
Amen.
Whether you live in a big city or a rural area, whether you're a small business owner or a big business owner, whether you're a landowner or a farmer, I want to be there. I want to be boots on the ground all the time like I've been now. And I want to hear from people what they want. And my whole idea is to run government like a business and make people accountable and use technology to be efficient and get things done quicker. I mean, I'm excited about where South Carolina is going. I believe it's the best place to live, work, and raise your family. But I also believe our best days are yet ahead of us.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time and all
Autry,
you've
thank
done for
you.
this. Friends, as we wrap up today, it is our American right and privilege to vote. We have a primary coming up in this state. Go vote. It matters. Join us next time. Thank you so much.